Gonna look at a verse here this morning. It's probably a verse you have heard. Probably many times. Excuse me. And it says, Proverbs chapter 18, verse 10. It says, "The name of the Lord is a strong tower. The righteous run into it and is safe." The name of the Lord is a strong tower. Let me try to explain this a little bit. What is he talking about, or what is he referencing here, or making this analogy to of a strong tower? Most of you, I'm guessing, have probably seen at least a picture, maybe in a movie or a book or something, a picture of a castle. Okay? And ancient castles and medieval castles had what they called the strong tower on it. Every corner had one, and depending upon how long the walls were, they would usually put one, maybe two, in between the corners. And it was, they were different shapes. Sometimes they were circle, sometimes they were square, but they were in the middle of the wall, like I said, either at the corner or just kind of in the middle to add support to the wall. But it was usually a lot taller than the wall, and it was a lot thicker, and you could actually get inside of it. Where the walls, you could get up on top of it, but you couldn't get inside of the walls like you could the tower. The tower was something that you could run into or go into. And sometimes they would store stuff in there, usually the weapons for the defense. But it was big, and you could get inside of it. And it was always the strongest part of the castle. This is where people would go, and a lot of different things, several different things would happen at these corners or in these towers. And this is why Solomon, under the inspiration of God, uses the analogy of the strong tower, is because what the strong tower was for. Okay? The strong tower of a castle was for the defense of the castle. And for in particular, the defense of the people inside of it. When the castle was coming under attack, people that would live in there, not the soldiers, but the people that would live in the castle, they wouldn't run to their house because the houses were weak. They would run to the towers and hide from the defense or from the attacks of the enemy. They would go in there, and they knew that if they got to that strong tower, they would be safe from the attacks of the enemy. The arrows that would come over the walls, they wouldn't get inside of the tower. The soldiers, if they would make it over the wall, the enemy soldiers, if they would make it over the wall, they wouldn't go into the towers first. They would go to the tops of the walls or to wherever the king was trying to hide, or the head of the castle. That's where they would go first. The people that were inside the strong towers were safe from the enemy. And that's just like us. As Christians, specifically, that's what this verse is speaking about. How we as Christians, when we come under attack from the enemy, and it happens a lot, we are under attack. Especially the more that we are doing for God, and the better we try to be, the better Christians that we try to be, the more it seems like we come under attack from the enemy. And it's saying here that we as Christians can run to the Lord, and the Lord will defend us like a strong tower defends those that are in it. Isn't that an awesome picture? that the Bible paints for us? That we could run to Christ and He is going to protect us from the enemy. Now notice what it does not say. It does not say that the enemy is not going to attack. Or it does not say that if we run to the Lord and if we stay with the Lord, it does not say that the enemy is not going to come. Because the enemy is going to come. And they're going to attack. And we need defense. Because I am not strong enough to defend myself from the enemy. I need somebody to help me out. I need a big brother to help defend me. That's why the Bible calls Christ our big brother. Because like small children or sometimes bigger children, they'll pick fights. Y'all know what I'm talking about. They'll pick fight with somebody that's bigger than them. And what do? When that person that's bigger than them starts to fight back, what do? They run to Big Brother. Big Brother's going to defend them. Now we as Christians, we don't pick fights. Fights pick us usually. But we still have to run to Big Brother to help defend us. Because we can't do it on our own. The enemy is bigger than I am. But he's not bigger than my big brother. My big brother is going to, the name of the Lord will defend me like a strong tower. The other thing that a strong tower does is it offers rest and a hiding place. When the enemy comes, a lot of times people that were getting ready to defend the castle, they would go and they would hide inside the tower. So when the enemy came in, they would have a hiding place. They would kind of seal up the door so they would be hidden. And that's like Christ, He hides us from the enemy sometimes. He doesn't let the enemy attack us sometimes. You think of, as a Christian man, you think of all these things that I go through. It could be worse. There are things that could come our way every single day that could make our life miserable and bad. And there are things that could come our life every single day that could kill us. Literally, physically cause us to die. But the name of the Lord is a defense and a hiding and a shield from those things. He protects us. He hides us. So the Bible says, He hideth my soul in the cleft of the rock. They made there's an old hymn that says that too, but it's actually a verse of Bible, or a verse of Scripture rather, that says He hides us in the cleft of the rock. He will protect us. He will hide us. He will keep us away from those things. But lastly, a strong tower is a place where the castle could be defended by attacking. If that makes sense. They could defend their castle by attacking the enemy. They would get up on top of these towers, and especially with bows and arrows, they would be able to shoot the arrow from a lot further and a lot higher on top of the tower. So they would get up there and they would be able to attack the enemy further away from the top of the tower than they could from just the top of the wall or from the ground. They could have a further line of defense from the top of the tower. And we as Christians, we do have to attack the enemy sometimes. But you just said, but you're not bigger than the enemy. How do you defeat him? By having Big Brother to help us out. But we have to attack the enemy. And as Christians, how do we do that? By trying to win people to Christ. That's what attacking the enemy is. Nothing hurts Satan worse than seeing a lost person come to know Christ. That is what hurts Satan the absolute worst, because he has lost a soul. That's why it is so important for us as Christians to witness to anybody and everybody we can. And so important for us as a church to do whatever we can to get the lost people in, where they can hear the salvation plan, and where they can hear about Christ, and that they can possibly be saved. But it's not just the church's responsibility. It's us as individuals. How do we get people into the church? By being good Christians. By living the life like Christ would have us to live. By having that personal relationship and trying to grow closer every day. And when we do that, Christ is going to see, or the world's going to see Christ on the outside of us. We always hear churches say and preachers say, Christ is going to live on the inside. Yeah, but he needs to show through on the outside. I heard a story one time of a little boy. He heard his Sunday school teacher tell him that Christ wants to live inside you. And he was a little bit confused by this, so he went home and asked his dad, said, Dad, if Christ is supposed to live inside of me, he says, Dad, how tall am I? Y'all know where I'm going with this. His dad tells him, oh, he's about 3, you're about 3 foot tall. How tall was Christ? Well, he was about, I don't know, between 5 and 6 foot tall, somewhere around there. So the boy says, well, if I'm 3 foot tall, and Christ was, just say, 6 foot tall, doesn't that mean that Christ should stick out of me everywhere? How profound. Christ needs to stick out of us. There are no secret Christians. Doesn't work that way. People should be able to watch our life and see that there's something different about us. They should see that we have been changed by Christ. God has done something in us. And by doing that, we are witnessing to people. A lot of times people and Christians get this mixed up that, well, if I'm going to witness to somebody, I have to say something to them. Or I have to talk to them. Or I have to do this and I have to do that with my words. There's a famous author, and he wrote several books. A guy by the name of C.S. Lewis. He has some of the greatest quotes about being a Christian. And he made a statement one time to a group of people. He said, always preach a sermon. And he goes on to say, when it's necessary, use your words. That means that we should always be acting like a Christian. And when it comes necessary, when somebody asks us, or when we do have that opportunity and it comes up in conversation, to witness about Christ with our words. But if the only time we're witnessing for Christ is when we speak, we're missing a whole lot of life that we can be using to witness. That's how we attack the enemy, is by living that Christian life and trying to win people to Christ, trying to see them saved. That is what we need to do. A lot of times we lose sight of that. We need to run to the name of the Lord. Why? Because the name of the Lord is a strong tower.